What's up everyone, it's a Knife Style here, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my first impressions on my newest Spyderco. Once again, I got the Spyderco Manix 2 Lightweight, and let me get my Manix 2 out of my case here really quick. So I've been carrying my G10 regular Manix 2 for the past 2 or 3 weeks, and it's really been hard to get this thing out of my pocket, and I liked it a bunch, and so I figured that I liked the lightweight, so I went ahead and picked it up, and I gave myself the excuse that I wanted to try out Spy 27 as a blade steel. And one thing, if you watch my channel and know, and have heard me talk about a lot of Spydercos, you know that I am not opposed to FRN, and I actually like it as a handle material. It's very lightweight, it's very strong, and it gives you good grip, and I feel like it's one of those things that gets a lot of hate just because there's some popular YouTubers out there that just scream, I hate FRN, and then everyone else starts saying it, that it feels cheap. And even though it doesn't feel as high quality as aluminum, titanium, micarta G10, it still is very strong and a pretty good handle material, or at least in my opinion. So that is just my thoughts on FRN, and I actually own a decent amount of Spydercos in FRN. Just looking at mine right now, I have 5 including this. So yeah, I'm not opposed to FRN at all, and so I think that if you guys are scared of FRN and have never tried it and have just heard people say that they don't like it, I would say give it a chance, because it's not as bad as a lot of people say, but it could be not appealing to a lot of people just because a lot of the main features of this knife are made out of plastic. But basically it's the handles are made out of plastic, the lock is, or not really a spring to the lock, but the blade is made out of metal, though. That is a good thing. But this one is in Spy 27, and I have used it a little bit. I've carried it for a couple days, and I have sharpened it. So I'll be able to give you guys my thoughts on that. But without further ado, let's get into my first impressions. So for the anatomy of this knife, I guess I've kind of gone through it already, but let me just go through it again. It's got CPM Spy 27 blade steel with the regular kind of spear pointy Manix blade shape. It's got their new teal colored FRN. It's got the ball bearing cage lock, which I really like, a two-way reversible tip up only deep carry, or not deep carry, wire pocket clip, and it is made in the Golden, Colorado factory, and I believe this goes for $140. So on to the next category, which is the looks, and personally, I really like the look of this FRN. It is a teal color, and obviously the camera shows up differently than it does in real life, but I still think that this is one of my favorite FRN colors that they make. I have a Dragonfly. This is the Seki City Japan one in K390, so I'll just compare these colors right here. So the teal on the Manix just is a little bit brighter, I guess you could say, more vibrant. I'm not someone who really cares about the looks of my knives all that much, but I do really like this color of FRN, and I'm excited to see more of it. And also the blade, I think that the satin finish on here looks like really clean. I don't know why. I don't think it looks cleaner on this one than any of their other ones, but I just think that it looks really good. And even though a stonewash finish is my favorite, I'm not opposed to a satin finish. So let's talk a little bit more about this blade. Let me first get a quick thickness behind the edge measurement on this. Let me get that in front of the camera. So I am on the bevel now. Sorry for taking up so much time, but I'm getting about 20 thousandths. Yep, 20 thousandths behind the edge on the dot. I think you guys can see that. And then here, I'm getting about 20 thousandths behind the edge. So 20 thousandths behind the edge on this guy all the way throughout. That is what I would expect coming from a Golden, Colorado knife. And so yes, I would like it to be thinner, but one thing about Spydercos that I don't really talk about much is their factory edge, and at least the angle that they sharpen it at. So from the Spyderco factory, they sharpen it at 15 degrees per side with a 20-degree micro bevel, and I feel like that's really good, and I really like that, and here's why. What I do when I sharpen this is I just put Sharpie on the whole bevel and basically just wipe off that 20-degree micro bevel and keep it at 15 degrees. One thing that I think is kind of a rumor in the knife world is that 15 degrees is too low for an EDC knife. A lot of people think all you can do is like use that for a kitchen knife, but no, I think that steels, at least these modern steels, can really take a 15-degree edge. I mean, maybe if you have 4 CR13 or 4CR14 or whatever. It probably won't be the best with a 15-degree bevel on it, but I think that these modern steels can take it, and so I've been rocking a 15-degree bevel on pretty much all of my Spydercos, so I really like that about what Spyderco does from the factory. Now, my issues with this factory grind, towards the tip, it looked a little bit wavy. This is my scratch pattern. I just ended this on a 600 grit stone because I wanted to see how this steel did with a toothy edge. And another one of my issues with sharpening this is this blade. So let me show you up close. Let's see if you guys can see it. Look right where my finger is. Do you see how that's a different color of lighting than the other secondary bevel right there? Looks almost like a little circle. So what that is if you look closely, that is a little low spot in that edge. They did not sharpen this knife all the way to the back of that plunge. Let me pull out my military to show you an example of that. I just knocked my EDCI formula off, but they do not sharpen these all the way back. And so what happens, or what I do to fix that, I haven't done it on my military, but what I did on this one is I basically just put this on the end of a diamond stone and just worked it all the way back. So that's a complete 90-degree flat angle right there. And so what I do is I bring it all the way back to the plunge grind, and I think I did a decent job with it. But what happened is, since they sharpened it from the factory on their high-powered belts and they didn't sharpen it all the way back, that spot is just a tad bit higher than the rest of the blade. So basically what happens is, when I sharpen on my stone and I get close to that spot, I skip over a little portion. Just so you guys know, I had Sharpie on that bevel and I was literally taking it to my stone, putting pressure right on it, going back and forth at the same angle I was holding throughout the sharpening, and I could not get that extra factory scratch pattern off of there. So it's one of those things that I'm not really sure what I'll do to fix that. If you have experienced this with sharpening and can let me know any tips or anything, please let me know in the comments or send me a message on Instagram or an email. But it's one of those things that I feel like this could all be solved just with a choil from the factory. I could cut in my own choil, but I don't really want to do that unless I absolutely have to. It's just one of those things that is a little bit frustrating. But how Spy 27 steel, how did it sharpen up? I was actually very, very impressed on what this did, because I do kind of a thing when sharpening a new steel. Basically, I see how many strokes it takes to completely wipe the burr off of the edge, and it took about 1 stroke on this one to minimize the burr. It took 2 strokes to get the burr completely off, and it took a 3rd stroke to slightly flip the burr to the other side. Keep in mind this on a 600 grit diamond plate, and so it is a little bit coarser than your average stone, but it's one of those things where this did a very good job at deburring. It formed a very crisp apex, and I really like how this sharpened up. And yeah, I feel like Spyderco, they do a really good job, or not a really good job with all steels, but I feel like they are a little bit ahead of the game compared to some of the other companies. I haven't tried some steels from Spyderco that are usually run soft, like M390, but it's one of those things that I feel like Spyderco does a pretty good job with their steels. And even though this probably isn't the best Spy 27 out there, it's still sharpened up very well for me, and I was very happy with it. Now, for the edge that I have on it, 600 grit, how did it hold up? Well, one, I feel like toothy edges on knives, I feel like a toothy edge can be good on pretty much any steel out there. I don't really feel like I'm ever like, this isn't the best with a toothy edge. I just feel like sometimes I like it more with a higher polish edge, and I feel like this is supposed to be a lot closer to S30V, kind of in that ballpark. So I bet it will be good kind of in that 1,200 grit range, or maybe you could take it all the way up to a mirror polish. I don't know. So far, I am impressed with this steel, and I really have enjoyed sharpening it. So sorry about that ramble right there. One thing that I do like about this Manix blade shape that I don't really think gets enough attention is it is a little bit different in the way that it has a little bit of a belly towards the base while flat at the tip. And I do a lot of cardboard cutting, and so that is good for me, because what I do is on knives, let me just pull out the Sabenza. On knives like this with a choil, I've gotten in the habit of just putting the cardboard in the like as far back as I can, and then going like that, basically, so I don't have the issue of material getting caught in that choil. So what happens with Spydercos or whatever when there is no choil is I still put it back there. While I don't have to, I just do it anyway. And what that little bit of belly does is it really catches that cardboard and gives me a little bit more power behind my cut, a little bit more slicing capability, and so I really like the blade shape on the Manix. Spyderco does a great job with blade shapes, and yeah, this is a really good one. For the fit and finish and lockup, sorry this is going a little bit slow, I kind of had a ramble about the blade there. But the lockup on this knife is really good. I really like this locking mechanism. It's one of my favorites to just look at. I'll give you a quick rundown on how it works, even though it's kind of self-explanatory. But basically, the stop pin is just kind of the stop bar, and then there is a little bit of a flat spot right above my finger, and that comes in contact with the stop bar, and it's just kind of almost like a back lock with no back spring to it, or a locking mechanism back here. But how the actual cage works is basically you see it's moving like this, and then there is that little bit of daylight, and that cage is going to go in front, or I guess behind that from this angle. So basically that is keeping the knife from going down, while this stop pin or this stop bar is keeping the knife from going back up. So this is a very strong lock, and I think it's really cool, and it's one of my favorite locks honestly out there. I don't really have a favorite lock, but I really like this one. I like titanium frame locks. I like the compression lock. Yeah, I like a lot of locking mechanisms, and it's not one of those things where I look for a specific one, but this is probably one of my favorites out there. On to the ergonomics. I'm a big fan of the ergos on the Manix. I guess my main complaint is just this jimping again, but I've noticed in use, especially with my G10 Manix, is that the jimping isn't that much of an issue for me because I'm mainly using it in this choked up grip. And even though there is jimping on the spine here, this is not very sharp, and you really don't feel that unless you did a bunch of use. And so I really like the ergos on the Manix. I like the ergonomic lines too, even though they are a little bit more I guess defined and specific than I really enjoy on a knife. I really like the ergos. It's comfortable. I've done a bunch of use with my G10 Manix. Not much with this, but I can tell that it is going to be really good. And then this pinch grip is also really good on the Manix. For the balance point on this lightweight version, let me try and find this. It's a little bit higher. So it's about right here on my finger, and it just fell off. I just watched it fall to its death. No, but it is a little bit blade heavy. I don't like that as much. This is a very minor nitpick, but I like knives to be a little bit more handle heavy. I feel like it makes the knife feel more robust and almost bigger in your hand, if that makes any sense. But overall, I'm not opposed to the weight, that kind of weight balance of this knife, and I really like the ergos of it, and I like how lightweight it is, and I guess I'll get into that with carry. So this thing is, I think, around 3 ounces, or maybe just right under it, and that is very, very good for a knife of this size, especially because the regular Manix is a lot heavier. But this has the wire clip, and it sits on this little patch right here, the Spyderco logo. Basically that makes it ride in the pocket nicely. It slides in and comes out very easily because of that, and it's not resting on this textured part of the G10. Now a lot of people might get upset because this pocket clip, it's not deep carry, but it's a wire clip. My thought about that is I actually like this more than if it was a deep carry wire clip, because I like that little bit of knife to grab onto. The Manix, it's a pretty wide, pretty hefty knife, or at least this one isn't very heavy, but it's not one of those knives that you're going to want to, I don't know, conceal. And I really don't understand the whole deep carry clip craze. I get changing it out if the knife kind of needs it for ergonomics, but it's one of those things there, I don't really see why people want a deep carry pocket clip so much. Because is it a thing where if people saw it, they'd freak out and think that you have a knife on you? Maybe, but personally for me, I've never had that happen. I've carried knives with a huge lanyard sticking out of the top where everyone can see it. So it's one of those things where this pocket clip is perfect for me. The wire clip is very functional, and in the hand you really don't feel that. Like, absolutely, you don't feel that thing at all. I probably wouldn't even know it's there unless obviously I can see it. So for the last category, the action of this knife, the action is pretty good on it. It is not a drop shot, but it is, I can just do it with a little bit of wrist, and overall I'm content with its action. If you're wondering if there's blade play, it's kind of weird on this because there is a little bit of flex, but it's almost not like a clicky side to side blade play. Like if you look at the gap between the blade and the two handle scales, I can move this knife over like that. So I can move that blade over, but it's not kind of like a clicky kind of blade play like you hear. Like, I don't know if you hear that. It's one of those things where it's not enough blade play to bother me at all, and I really think that the whole art of having a knife with absolutely zero blade play is just kind of a perfectionist thing that we have in our heads. And so it's one of those things where, yeah, this lockup and this action is perfectly fine with me. And yeah, I really like this locking mechanism because I like ones that pack a lot of strength while still having one hand open, one hand closed. Because a lot of times it seems like it's a trade-off with locking mechanisms. Like, oh yeah, the stronger it is, the harder it is to manipulate. If you think of something like the triad lock, which isn't really that hard to manipulate, but you guys get what I'm saying. This one I feel like is the best of both worlds. So for the last category, the value of this knife, coming in at $140, and I actually got this off Knives Ship Free. Once again, they're not my sponsor. I just really like buying from them. They have no clue who I am, but I had store credit from buying the Unknowns on, and so I got $40 off on this, which is a great deal. $100 for this, absolutely, I would 100% buy this. I would suggest it to all my friends and say get this knife because it's a very good knife for that price. For $140, that kind of changes things. Personally, I would be completely happy to pay $140 for this knife. I actually bought it thinking in my mind that it was going to be $140, but then I realized I had that credit or whatever. But it's one of those things where I don't know at the $140 price point if I would suggest this to maybe someone who's like, you know, I'm looking for a good knife that can really get some work done. I like Spydercos or whatever. I don't know if I would pick this one over maybe something like the Sage 5 Lightweight. You can pay $30 more for the Gale Bradley 2. You can pay probably $10 or $20 more for a Manix or a regular G10 Manix, which I think is always kind of one of your preference things. It's one of those things where $140, I'm happy with that price point. I would suggest this knife to you guys, my viewers, but I don't think that is as good enough as a deal to be able to suggest it to your average person who doesn't know much about knives. But that is going to do it for the video. This is my first impressions on the Spyderco Manix 2 Lightweight and Spy 27. Overall, I'm very happy with this knife. I feel like it's going to be a great one, especially to carry in the summer. I'm so far really enjoying Spy 27's steel. I'm enjoying the ergonomics, and I'm enjoying... Why am I saying enjoying so much? I'm liking to carry this knife, and I'm excited to use it a little bit more. So that's going to do it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you're new. And I will see you guys in the next one.